Hello, I'm Sandra Pollock of Open Mind Training and Development. I am your business coach, and we have another session here with a question, this time that was raised via our LinkedIn chat. And just whilst I'm on that note, you can raise questions with us via our LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or really any other of our social media streams, or via our website. And if you want to raise a question, just write your question out, make sure we're tagged in, and we may very well share it here, but certainly we'll get back to you on it. So the question for this month is a broad one. It is, how do we get work-life balance? Now, when this question was raised, it wasn't clear whether it was from the perspective of the individual or from the perspective of the employer, the organization. So what I'm going to try to do with this very broad question is to add a little bit on both of those sides, because I know that many of you run your own businesses. So as well as being the person in charge of the business, there's a work-life balance issue. And as well as taking care of your employees and those people who are around you, there is a work-life balance issue as well. So I'm going to try to touch on both of those in some regard. So yes, very, very big question. And we're all experiencing the pressures of work-life balance, particularly recently, as we are still in, but hopefully, fingers crossed, coming through the COVID pandemic and the series of lockdowns that we've all gone through. Wherever you are in the world, there has been an impact with regard to that. And I suspect that we're going to be dealing with that for some time to come, whether in our work environment or in our home environment. Yeah, just a little bit longer, probably. You know, a recent study came out from the McKinsey group, who do quite a lot of research on work-related issues. And this basically said that, during the pandemic, there has been an increase in the amount of work that families have experienced, and in particular, women have experienced since the COVID-19 pandemic began. For example, their report stated that 1 in 5 women were considering leaving the workplace, the workforce, or downshifting their careers versus 1 in 5 men. Whilst women have, certainly all women have been greatly impacted, there have been 3 main groups that have experienced the largest challenges as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic impact. And these groups have been working mothers, women in senior management positions, and Black women. So work-life balance has become really impactful for women, and particularly these groups across the board. I am sure it has impacted men as well. But in terms of women taking and carrying most of the caring and family-related responsibilities in the home, that impact has been greater. And in addition to that, many women are working, especially in the Western world, working as well as continuing to carrying out the home caring support side of our lives as well. But if we're honest, the issue of work-life balance isn't new, and it hasn't sort of reared its ugly head just in the last 18 to 20 months of the pandemic and the series of lockdown. Issues with the work-life balance have been around for a very long time. And I know, in dealing with clients and my friends and people around me, it's something that we have been discussing for years. So yeah, how do we get that work-life balance? That is the question. And in providing some of the tips and answers that I'm going to be sharing with you, I would say that managing work-life balance is a continual process. There isn't a switch that we can switch and it will be all sorted out. It's something that we're obviously constantly going to be thinking about. And most of the time, it's affecting us mentally, emotionally, and physically as well. So it's important that we do pay attention to understanding what it is and trying to do our best to make sure that we find some balance and recheck that on an ongoing basis. Numerous research studies indicate that work-life balance is considered important and it impacts and affects our well-being. So what is well-being and what is work-life balance, and how do we get these two things working? I'd like to break down, those separate parts. I love to break down different words and phrases that we use to make sure that we are clear about what we mean when we use these words, well-being and the phrase work-life balance. What is it? Work-life balance is, in basic terms, a state of being or feeling comfortable, healthy, happy, and relatively content with our lives and our everyday being. So, put this way, I'm sure this question might jump to your head. When have I really felt in a complete state of contentment in relation to all of those things? So that's one question. But I think the real question for me is, what percentage of time do I feel or experience this state of balance? And where are the times or the experiences where this is worse for me? And so when we can identify those differences, that then helps us to focus on where we need to pay attention, and not necessarily thinking that we have to pay attention to everything and all at the same time, because that can be quite overwhelming. So from a business perspective, the employer has a role to play in supporting and ensuring their employees in terms of the environment that they experience whilst they're at work, that environment encourages a sense of well-being. So as an employee, there's an expectation that you need to be clear about the type of culture, environment, and physical workplace that you want to create and maintain in order to do what you can to ensure that there is a sense of well-being for your employees, and that you are doing what you can to support their work-life balance, because one does affect the other. Work affects life and life affects work. So as an employee, there's an expectation that you would have a clarity within yourself, within your strategy, to do what you can to create that balance for yourself. But we're talking about your workplace and your employees right now. So is it going to be a place where profits are the only focus, so everything else is cut down to the nth degree? Or, is it going to be somewhere where you do sometimes spend a little time and maybe some resources to ensure that you're in the environment people work in is helpful? So an example is, if people are struggling with the software that they're using on their computers, and most of their time is spent being frustrated, because your computer isn't right, it's old, or as I mentioned, the software you're using fails, regularly, then that's going to cause stress, and that's going to impact on the environment, on the culture, on whether people feel positive about coming to work, and that's going to have an impact on their mental and emotional state. Those are things that as an employer, you can pay attention to. There are companies out there that their focus is on, recruiting younger people so that they get that energy, they get that attention. But what happens on the other side of that is that people come in, they work hard, they are pushed. And I'm not saying you shouldn't push people, but they're pushed to the nth degree, and then they burn out. They leave, they take that expertise, that knowledge with them. And then as an employer, you are having to recruit and train up again. What's the long-term impact on your business? What's the long-term environment that those people who are with you are enduring? And what's the impact on your business? Do people want to come and work with you, or do they stay long, or they not? Those are, some of the things that impact on work-life balance from both the individual's perspective, but also from that that of a business. So if there's a short turnaround, people burn out, how's that creating a stable environment? It may not be. And people will leave to go to a more stable environment. So think about those things. What is it as an employer that you want to create in terms of the environment that impacts on everything that your staff will experience and endure? So various studies have listed different elements that play in the arena of well-being in the workplace and work-life balance as it impacts, or is it as a contribution from the workplace impacts. So I picked out a few of those just for you to think about. We don't have enough time in this session to go into all of them. But my question for you is, in relation to these areas, what are you looking to achieve? What have you created? So, and this is not rocket science. This is just a refresher for you, really. So some of the areas that I've picked are, and this is, we're talking about the employer here, looking at your responsibility. Some of these areas are physical. What's the physical environment? What's the emotional environment that people experience? What's the financial impact, that people experience? Are they being paid reasonably well or not? And therefore, is this something that is affecting their ability to perform when they're at work? Or are they constantly having to do more work or to do extra work in order to ensure that they are achieving the financial achievements that they're wanting to? What's the social environment in your workplace? Occupation, are people doing what they are best skilled to do, or are they just doing what is required? There is a difference in people's performance with regard to that, their attitude, and certainly their contribution. Spirituality, what is that? Are people free to talk about, engage in, have opportunities within the working environment to pray, if that's a part of their spirituality? Or, how do you provide in these areas for your employees? Are they getting intellectual challenge? So intellectual contribution, intellectual challenge is something that can motivate and inspire people. And again, we're looking at the overall environment as well. So environment is, it includes the physicality, but physicality, as I mentioned first, so that might be physicality in terms of how people are sitting at their desks, that they have the right desks for them, the right chairs for them. But environment is the overall thing, the provision, facilities, opportunities and places to take a break, have lunch, those sorts of things. So a few topics there as an employer for you to think about. In a nutshell, well-being at work is about the quality of life whilst at work and how this impacts on the life outside. And all of this does impact on the topic that we're looking at today, work-life balance. So if people are happy in their working environment, work-life balance may be easier for them to achieve. If they're unhappy, then it's going to put a lot more pressure on them. So work-life balance is found when an individual is able to balance or equally prioritize the demands of their career and the demands of their personal life. So just looking at this, it demonstrates to me that there is really no, and there will never be, a one size fits all. Or there's probably not even a one size fits an individual for their entire life, because our needs change, our situations change as we progress through life. We get older, when we are young and in our teens, or maybe early 20s, if we haven't got partners in our lives, or we haven't got children, then our focus is going to be completely different. When we begin to gather more responsibilities, whether that's the family life, becoming a parent, or having responsibility to look after the elders in our family, then our focus in terms of what's important to us changes. So, the issue here is to understand what is important for you as an individual, and also what is important for you as an employer providing that service. What's important to you, but also, have you any idea about what's important for your staff members in terms of their work life balance, their priorities, not only in the work situation whilst they're at work, but also in terms of their life? I'm not saying that their outside or non-work life is your responsibility, but it is an impact. It has an impact on your business, and it has an impact on them whilst they're contributing to your business. So, from an employer's perspective, this may seem like a very impossible task to achieve work-life balance. But if the employer and the employee are working together, then together you can create something, an environment that works best for both of you. So this means that both have respective responsibilities and roles in working on work-life balance, and this helps, in some regard, by in the employer's perspective. This is why we have laws, rules, regulations, those sorts of things, to help us focus on getting the best out of our staff, but also doing what we can as employee and employers to support that work-life balance. But, good organizations make sure that they are operating ahead of the curve of these regulations, laws, and procedures to provide that supportive environment in the workplace, and not working behind it, because nowadays people are, and especially the younger generation, are a lot more picky in terms of who they work for. I'm not saying the older generation are not, but the needs, the focus has changed, and work-life balance is much more important for the younger generation. It's not only about making money, and we all want to have a good salary, to maintain that quality of life, but the quality of life, money is only a part of it. So as an employer, what other benefits are you offering your members of staff to ensure that they're getting that work-life balance? As an employee, in addition to focusing on what you're trying to achieve with regard to your career, i.e., focus on your job, you also have to be responsible to know what is balance for you. What does work-life balance look like for you? If you don't know what it looks like at this stage in your life, how can you work on making sure it happens? And certainly, it's not your employer's responsibility to know the answers to that question. It's yours. So spend some time thinking about that. What is and what would work-life balance look like for you? An activity I recommend, as I said, is to sit and write that out. Actually think about it, write it out. Ask yourself questions like, what are my values? What's important to me? What makes me feel and experience a sense of well-being? Being and feeling comfortable, healthy, happy, and content with my whole life, and in this case, with your whole life. Do you know the answers to those questions? Once you've done this, you can now compare these ideals that you have for yourself with what your life is currently showing. And where there are big differences, well, then you know that those are the areas that you need to focus on. If, for example, having more me time, whether it's walking in the park, spending time with your family, or whatever, having more time where you are relaxed in those situations may be a priority for you. Well, how do you get relaxed? Are you ensuring that you're eking out a little bit of time or opportunity to relax yourself so that you can enjoy those opportunities? Is if we go back to the work situation, one of the things that I do is to make sure at the end of the day I have a list of the things that I need to focus on when I come in the morning. That makes me feel a little bit more in control of what's going on. Maybe I've not finished things from today, so maybe I need to make sure I pay attention to those tomorrow. Sometimes little things like that can bring you a sense of peace, and that peace, that inner harmony, can help you feel a little bit more balanced and a little bit more in control. Sometimes it's not rocket science. It's just being clear about where and what you need to focus on, and coming up with tips, ideas, ways that you can improve in those particular areas, instead of feeling that, oh my gosh, my whole life is rubbish and I need to change everything. Well, that in itself is just really overwhelming. And probably 90% of the time, that's not true anyhow. Sometimes we can lose focus on what is going well and what isn't. So, we can spend our time blaming other people for they're not doing this, or this is not right because somebody else has done something or haven't. But what is important to you? So make sure that you go back and ask yourself and answer those questions. What are your values? What makes you feel good? What makes you experience a sense of well-being within yourself and balance, if we're looking at work-life balance, which we are. So the decisions that we make within our own life sometimes impacts and brings about this sense of lack of work-life balance. Nobody else is making those decisions for us. We are making them. So we need to think about, what are we deciding to do over other things that might make us feel more balanced in relation to our work and our lives. It could be a simple thing like being honest with your employer or the people around you as to what's going on in your life and where maybe you need a little bit more flex to help you or to support you at this point in time. Not deciding to be honest and share, but then struggling to keep up with everything, to work longer, then you're getting home later, then you're having less time to relax and to spend with the family. That's a decision that you're making that impacts on your work-life balance. So there's an element of being honest with yourself and being clear about your own well-being needs. And this will help you to understand yourself, why certain things rub you the wrong way or others don't. And this will embolden you, that clarity will embolden you to make better decisions, to make your case more effectively, and to ask for the help you need when you need it. So self-knowledge is not only valuable in the workplace, but also in your home and social lives as well. If you're caring, for other people, you have caring responsibilities, whether this is for younger people or elderly members of your family, then flexibility at work, having a little bit of flex in terms of your start time and your finish time may be important to you. Flexible working may be important to you. The opportunity to work from home, occasionally may be important to you, but no one else will know what's important to you unless you do and you share that information. So what does work-life balance look like to you, and how can you get help? So if we're thinking now about the home environment, we've started touching on this a little bit. We're thinking about, whether we have caring responsibilities at home. But I remember one of the things that I did when our children were younger, we would teach them how to tidy up after themselves. Coming home to an untidy house adds to your stress. no work-life balance there because you feel as though you're coming home from work to work. So we started to teach them how to tidy up, and we started to teach them before they went to bed, let's tidy up. And so they got into the habit of tidying up after themselves. So at the end of the night, when everybody's gone to bed, I didn't then have to tidy up the house. Sometimes little things like that, teaching, the youngsters around us, especially the smaller they are, the younger they are, the more excited they are about helping us and being involved. So start early where you can. If your young people are older, share with them, what you're experiencing, the responsibility you have, the stress you're under, and how their contribution can make a difference. I always say to our children now and when they were younger, we're a team. And in a team, everybody works to support everybody else. Explaining to them how you work to support them, and then giving examples of how they can contribute to the whole team. So, as I say, tidying up after themselves, putting their toys away, setting the dinner table for dinner, washing up, putting dishes away. These may seem like minor tasks, but if you're not having to do them while everybody else is doing other things, sleeping, relaxing, enjoying themselves, then having that shared responsibility can help you not to have so much on your shoulder to share the load. Okay, and it can make a big difference to the amount of things that you find that you're having to do for yourself. So identify age appropriate tasks for your children or other people around you. This is an important element to their growth and their adjustment to the world that they live in. If you're caring for elderly parents, friends, or families, then ask others around, other members of your family, other members of their friends, to share some of these tasks and responsibilities. Maybe do a rota of when different people will go during the week to visit the family member, to do chores for them, who will, do the groceries, those sorts of things. In many cultures, this element of care is seen as a duty and the responsibility of the woman alone. So if you're in an environment where, the men folk in your family will not contribute, then share the responsibility with the female members of your team. And what I mean by that, your family, what I mean by that, maybe do things together. If you're cooking, cook together. If you're cleaning the house, and do that together. The more hands speeds up the process. So work together. But if you don't have people within your family, then see who is around from a wider perspective, friends, supportive people that might help you. And then again, we say sometimes that men will not contribute, but have we asked? Have we asked? Have we shared with them, how their help and support would be helpful, and maybe pick out some things that they're okay about doing. They might, with a list, go do the shopping, for example. There may be other things. Have a family discussion about how we are going to care for our elders, how we are going to support ourselves in terms of that work-life balance. Because if we're going out and working outside the home and then having these additional work, which is, part of our life to do when we come home, how can we share that load and that responsibility? It's all about being honest about where you are, what you're experiencing, and not afraid to share. People can't help us if they don't know. And people can sometimes assume that all is well because we have not said it isn't. So let's look at how we're improving our work-life balance in the home. What are we doing there? Prioritizing what's important, and where do we start? Sometimes we have this whole list of things from the work environment that we think from the home environment, that we think is important, but it's not. So sometimes to think about a priority. What's the priority? Obviously, food, clothing, bathing, making sure that people are safe. Those are priorities. But sometimes there are other things. Gardening may not be a priority. Things like that may not be a priority. So what are the priorities? For example, ordering the grocery and prescriptions online is something that I've been doing, especially the ordering the groceries. I've been doing for years, particularly when our children were younger. And this made such a difference because I didn't have to spend the time going out, going down to the store, going around the store, picking up the groceries, paying for them, bringing them back home. I could order them online. And nowadays, if we have prescriptions, for younger people or for our elderly parents or family that we're looking after, we can now order those prescriptions online. So what can you do online that can give you a little bit more time? Allow other family members to do some of the chores. I've mentioned this, particularly if it's something that they like doing, and you won't know what people like doing until you talk to them. So if there's something that they like doing, why not get them to do that? That'll ease things a little for you. Even if they don't do things as well as you do things. Now, just a little story from my own life again. My husband, when we moved in together years ago, I did all the chores, all the work, all of that sort of stuff. And now after a while, I thought, you know what? I needed some help. So I asked him, I said, could you do the vacuuming and that sort of stuff? And he was like, yeah, I could do the vacuuming. But then I'll be honest, I would look around and I think, this is not done. He's done it, but it's not done as well as I would do it. And I had to stop myself complaining, because if I complained, then he would say, well, fine, if I'm not doing it as good as you want it done, then you do it. Then I have that responsibility, that chore, that task back on my shoulders. So I had to learn to be grateful for the fact that he's doing it as well as he can. And maybe he's not seeing things, so we can have a conversation, we can talk about it, but not complain or not make him feel that his contribution is not good enough. So I had to learn to adjust my expectations so that I could get some additional support. That's another way. Perfectionism is a hard taskmaster. Perfectionism is a hard taskmaster because you're taking those tasks back on, you'll get them thrown back on your own shoulders. So I've had to learn to let my husband do the vacuuming of the house as well as he could. At least it's being done. So what can you get others to help and not complain about? So creating a rota for family members for visitations, for the elderly parents or family that you're looking after if they don't live with you. And even if they live with you, you can have, some of the family coming in, taking them out, looking after them. You can still have a rota, which again gives you a little bit more time for doing other things. One of the things that I've done for years, I still do now, is bulk cooking. I will cook larger amounts, whether it's vegetables or meat dishes, depending on what your diet is, larger quantities. Then I would separate them out, package them out, put them in the freezer, and they can be easily defrosted, which has given us so much time in our household. So whoever comes in, whether it's my husband and, a daughter, one of them, they know they can go into the freezer, find something in there, and then add some other stuff with them, which shortens our cooking time daily in our house. So again, ask for help. Others will not know that we're struggling and need help if we don't talk to them about it and ask for help. If we were meant to do everything ourselves, we would be the only person on earth. Think about that. So we're not meant to do everything ourselves. So ask for help. So it may take a little time to ask other people for that help and support. It may take a little time to change our routine, to retrain or train others, to show others what we want doing and how to do it in order to get their help. But that short-term discomfort is worth it long-term. So think about the end product. Know what work-life balance is for you. Identify the areas that are not quite balanced that you can do something about. Some areas you may not be able to do things about. So look at other areas and can I change this? Can I get help? Can I adjust myself in any way at all? And it's most important to create regular appointments with yourself to create that work-life balance. You may be someone who likes to sew, crochet, paint, something like that. Create regular appointments with yourself. Again, when our children were younger, we would explain to them that everybody should have something that they like to go off and do by themselves. It may be drawing, maybe reading, it may be whatever. And just as children like to do things, and we as adults like to do things and have some quality time with ourselves as well. So educate the people around you so that when you need to go, it could be a bath, fill the bath with suds and put candles and nice smelling stuff. If you like that sort of thing and relax, they would understand why you're doing it and that you need to do it. Creating work-life balance is a communicative thing. It's not just you on your own. Others are impacting and can impact on that as well. So regularly, it could be that you sleep in Saturday mornings until 10 o'clock. So everybody knows, depending on the age of your children, if you have children, or depending on what you need to do with others, sleep in every Saturday mornings. Every now and again, probably once a month, I have a pajama day. And that means that I'm going to stay in my pajamas all day. Okay. Don't ask me to do anything, but the family know. So and that gives me such a rest. So work-life balance is one of those ways. What can you do? Little things that you can do to bring that balance, but you need to know what works for you. So what makes you feel good about yourself? What reinvigorates you? What energizes you? Identify those people, maybe people as well, maybe people that you're talking to that help you and support you, energize you, make you feel better, happy. So that's probably good for somebody out there. But also there may be other things, activities, tasks that you tend to do. It could be reading, writing, watching a movie, cooking, baking. If you're a guy watching this, and I know we do have lots of guys watching, it could be playing golf, tennis, or something. Think about it. What is it? Playing games, remote on the computer. It could be anything. What revitalizes you? Make some regular appointments with yourself, some quality and some me time. There's several things that I'm sure if you think about it, that you will find, actually, doing this really does make me feel better. So maybe I can book that in and book some time in your calendar, just as you would book an appointment with a doctor or with a member of staff, or a meeting, appointment, a regular appointment that you have. Book some quality time with yourself. It may be just going for a walk in the park, just to have some space for yourself. These little things affect your well-being and your work-life balance. So I've shared quite a few things there with you, and I hope that you have found some helpful things. One of the most timely and emotionally consuming aspects of the lockdown was that we didn't have the freedom to move around, and we've all experienced this. And I know one of the big things that have impacted on parents and women over this period was the expectation that parents would school their children at home, that they would support them in terms of their schooling, their education, that sort of stuff. And I know that lots of women and lots of parents found this extremely stressful. So work your way back from this, and you can do this. This is a wide topic, work-life balance, and it depends on where you are and where you're coming from at this point in your life. Ask yourself, be clear for yourself what work-life balance means for you, what's important to you, what are your values, and how you're reaching those with your current life or not, and what it is that you can do to bring about that change to stem that gap that you're experiencing right now. So remember, creating balance as an employee is your responsibility. Ensuring that you're doing all you can in your working environment, in your workspace, as people come into your business as an employer, is your responsibility. But it's all about feeling and being comfortable, healthy, happy, and content with your life. So, work impacts on home and social life, and your home and social life impacts on your work. How can you balance? Only you really can truly answer that question. But I hope that in this session, I've given you some food for thought. I've given you some tips to help you address this. And if you really would like some support, one of the things I do with people in my coaching and consultancy is to help them to understand what else they can do and to help them objectively look at their lives, because sometimes we are too close and we can't see how we can change things ourselves. So I hope that's been useful. If you'd like some support again with your work-life balance, whether it's the work environment or the home environment, then drop me a line. You can always find me on social media, or visit my websites, www.openmindcoaching.com. That's one website, or my personal website, www.sandrapollock.com, is where you can reach me. But I would be really delighted to give you any help and support that I can, and to work with you on improving your work-life balance. So this is me, Sandra Pollock, signing out for now. I look forward to receiving more of your questions and helping you in identifying how you can improve your business and your life experience. So this is me signing out for now. Thank you so much for joining me. Love, light, and every good thing to you. Out for now.